According to the United Nations, Sudan is currently experiencing the most severe humanitarian crisis anywhere in the world. Tens of thousands of civilians have been killed, while millions have been forced to flee their homes. Entire neighborhoods have been destroyed, and reports from the ground describe conditions so brutal that they are difficult to comprehend. On October 27, 2025, Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab published an analysis based on satellite imagery taken over the city of al-Bashir in western Sudan. The images revealed mass graves and clusters of dead bodies lying in open areas. The amount of blood visible was so extensive that large patches of land appeared red even from satellite photographs. The researchers concluded that these findings pointed toward systematic ethnic cleansing, with indigenous non-Arab communities being deliberately targeted inside residential areas. Sudan is located in northeastern Africa, directly south of Egypt. To the west, it borders Libya, Chad, and the Central African Republic. To the east lies the Red Sea, one of the world's most critical maritime trade routes. Because of this strategic position, instability in Sudan affects not only Africa but also the Middle East and global trade routes. Nearly 95% of Sudan's population is Muslim, primarily Sunni. However, the conflict in Sudan is not driven by religion. The real divisions are ethnic. Sudan's population of around 50 million is made up of roughly 70% Arab Muslims and 30% non-Arab African ethnic groups, including the Fur, Zagawa, Berti, and Maba. These groups also largely follow Sunni Islam, while Christians and followers of traditional African religions form a very small minority. Despite its vast natural resources, Sudan remains one of the poorest countries in the world. It is Africa's third largest gold producer, mining over 60,000 kilograms of gold every year. Yet nearly 90% of this gold is smuggled out illegally, depriving the state of revenue and instead funding armed groups that use gold profits to purchase weapons and expand their influence. Since gaining independence from British-Egyptian rule in 1956, Sudan has rarely experienced stable civilian governance. Military and authoritarian regimes have dominated the country's political life. In 1989, General Omar Hassan al-Bashir seized power in a military coup and went on to rule for 30 years. Al-Bashir's rule was marked by widespread corruption, economic collapse, inequality, and prolonged internal conflicts. Public services deteriorated, poverty deepened, and political dissent was brutally suppressed. In 2011, the country suffered another major blow when South Sudan became an independent state, taking with it a large share of Sudan's oil resources. For years afterward, Sudan's economy continued to shrink, with GDP remaining negative and living standards declining further. By the late 2010s, the majority of Sudan's population was struggling to meet basic needs, setting the stage for mass unrest. In 2019, widespread frustration erupted into massive nationwide protests. Millions of Sudanese took to the streets demanding an end to Omar al-Bashir's dictatorship and calling for democracy. These demonstrations became some of the largest in the country's history. Eventually, al-Bashir was removed from power, but not by civilians. Instead, two military leaders stepped in: General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, head of the Sudanese armed forces, and General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemedti, the leader of the Rapid Support Forces. Although protesters demanded a civilian government, power remained firmly in military hands. A transitional council was created, combining civilian representatives with military leaders. Al-Burhan appointed himself head of the council, while Dagalo became his deputy. Many Sudanese believed this arrangement was temporary and that elections would follow. Those hopes collapsed in October 2021, when al-Burhan dissolved the transitional government, declared a state of emergency, and seized full control of the state. Dagalo retained his position, and the two generals emerged as Sudan's most powerful figures. Tensions between them soon escalated into rivalry. The central dispute revolved around the future of the RCF. The army wanted to absorb the RCF into the national military, while Dagalo opposed this move, fearing a loss of autonomy, influence, and wealth. Control over gold mines became a critical factor, as both sides relied heavily on gold revenues to maintain their forces. On April 15, 2023, open conflict erupted between the Sudanese armed forces and the RCF. It remains disputed who fired the first shot, but the fighting quickly escalated into a full-scale civil war. At the start of the war, the army held certain advantages, including an air force and heavier weapons. However, the RCF had transformed into a highly organized and battle-hardened paramilitary force. Within weeks, the RCF captured large parts of the capital, Khartoum, including the presidential palace. After nearly 2 years of intense fighting, the army recaptured Khartoum in March 2025. Celebrations followed, but they did not last long. By June 2025, the RCF launched major offensives in western Sudan, gaining control of key regions near the borders with Libya and Egypt. As of late 2025, most of western Sudan, including Darfur and Kordofan, is under RCF control, while the army controls the north and east. Sudan now stands dangerously close to another territorial division. The war has revived deep-rooted ethnic tensions, particularly in Darfur. In 2003, non-Arab groups rebelled against an Arab-dominated government, prompting al-Bashir to arm Arab militias known as the Janjaweed. These militias carried out mass killings, village burnings, and forced displacement, resulting in around 300,000 deaths and millions of refugees. General Dagalo was a senior commander within the Janjaweed. In 2013, the group was rebranded as the Rapid Support Forces, but its leadership and methods remained largely unchanged. Since 2023, the RCF has again been accused of ethnic cleansing, mass executions, and the destruction of non-Arab communities in Darfur. The humanitarian consequences of Sudan's civil war are catastrophic. More than 150,000 people have been killed, and over 10 million have been displaced. Hospitals, schools, roads, and water systems have been destroyed. Farming has collapsed, leading to widespread food shortages and famine conditions. Diseases such as cholera, malaria, and dengue fever are spreading rapidly due to the breakdown of healthcare services. In many areas, hunger and illness are killing more people than direct fighting. Both sides have been accused of war crimes. The Sudanese army has been blamed for indiscriminate airstrikes and artillery attacks in civilian areas, while the RCF faces accusations of ethnic cleansing and mass executions. Sudan's strategic location and natural wealth have attracted foreign involvement, further complicating the conflict. External actors are accused of supplying weapons and support two different sides, prolonging the war and reducing the chances of peace. Multiple peace initiatives and ceasefire proposals have failed. According to the United Nations, nearly 30 million people, around 60% of Sudan's population, now require humanitarian assistance, yet international funding remains far below what is needed. At its core, Sudan's tragedy is the result of a power struggle driven by greed and ambition. Despite immense natural resources, the country has descended into one of the worst humanitarian disasters of the modern era. As global attention shifts elsewhere, Sudan risks becoming another forgotten war unless meaningful international action is taken.